Welcome back to episode 6 of 2 Minute Tuesdays, where each week I'm doing the shallowest of dives into some of AWS's services for those just starting their cloud journey. Now, last week I talked about what are IP addresses, because that sets me up for this week talking about CIDR ranges, classless inter-domain ranges, which is often a concept that people struggle with in the beginning. Now, unfortunately, I don't have video editing skills to do nice graphics, and I was going to do some terrible drawing on my iPad underneath to try and help explain, but sadly, I've misplaced it since my rainy holiday last week, so hopefully you can cope with that. Anyway, let's get 2 minutes on the clock, and let's go. So last week, I spoke about private IP address ranges, such as 10.something.something.something. When you first launch your VPC, the first thing you have to do is pick a CIDR range in which to launch all your resources. Now, you could just say, I'm going to use the 10 range and be done. And you'd have almost 17 million private IP addresses and everyone's happy because you've got plenty, apart from anyone who cares about security or organization. If we go back to my VPC analogy from a couple of weeks ago, by just running everything in the 10.something range, you're effectively putting all your resources into one giant room. If someone has access to that room, then they have access to everything in that room, and that's not safe and it's not very organized. So instead, we use CIDR ranges to define how many rooms we can have and then how many things we can have in each room. We can separate our IP addresses into the network address and the host address. So if we have a CIDR range of 10.0.0.0/16, that /16 at the end is saying that of the 32 bits that make up our IP address, use 16 for the network or our rooms and the other 16 for our hosts or our resources. Now the 10 has already used the first 8 bits, but the second 8 bits for the network give us how many rooms or subnets we can have, which would be 2 to the power 8, which is 256. Then in each of those subnets, we can have the rest of the bits, the final 16, which would give us just over 65,000 hosts in each subnet, in each room. If instead we did /24, that would reserve the first 24 bits for the network, which would give us 65,000 different subnets, a lot of rooms, but only the last 8 bits for the hosts, which is 256, and technically it's only 251 hosts in each room. Generally, we need a good balance between the number of subnets and the number of hosts. But you've got to be careful, because once you've set your VPC CIDR range, there is no changing it later. We're done. That's it. So CIDR ranges define how many subnets you can have and how many hosts within each subnet, and then you choose this when you set up your VPC. I hope this was helpful. Things you may want to go and research yourself. Why is it that you only get 251 hosts rather than 256? Why do you lose 5? And what happens if you have /20 rather than a nice multiple of 8, /16, /24? I've also linked below a couple of useful web pages with some more information if you want it. Next week, I'm going to be talking about EC2 instances. What are they? And the different types of instances and what do they do? As always, please do share this with anyone who might be interested, and I look forward to seeing you next week for the next episode of 2 Minute Tuesdays.